Okay, let's talk about this audit. You said there could be audit. So if there is an audit, you said it could take even longer, like a year at times. So is there any way that we can expedite it? And the other question is, if we cannot expedite it, what about the situation of a person who's, let's say, the H1B is expiring in few months, or let's say H1B is expiring in a year, and there's just a perm audit.
Yeah, that's why it's important to start the process ahead of time and not wait until you're in your 6th year of H1 and then file the green card. Because there are a lot of these things are not in our hands, right? We cannot predict the processing time. And as I was saying, if there is an RFE on the I-140, or if there's an audit on the perm, or if there's supervised recruitment, or if the case gets denied, then everything is out, all the timeline that you put, the tight timeline that you put for yourself is all out of the window. So if your 6 years are getting over on your H1 and your labor cert is your perm is in audit, then obviously you have two options. You have to either change your status to another status and see if you can work in that status. If it's a status that gives you work visa, then you can. For example, if you can change to an H4 and then get H4 EAD, then it's possible to. If it's possible to do that, then you should change your status. And then if you want to get back onto a H1, then file a change of status again to a H1 once your I-140 gets approved. Because as you know, if you have an I-140 approved, you're able to file a H1 beyond 6 years. Another option is to leave the country and work remotely if your employer allows that. And then come back, file a H1, and come back once the I-140 is approved. Also, you have to remember that if your I-140 is not approved, but if you have already spent a year outside the country, you're eligible for a fresh 6 years. So you can come back even then, but you're subject to the H1B quota, which means you have to wait until March. Every year the quota opens up in March. So you have to wait until March before you can actually file, for the H1 again. Another way is to file a change of status to an F1, a student. And then if your university allows CPT, and if you have not taken CPT before or OPT before, then it's possible to do CPT, but please act with caution when you're getting on a CPT, but it's possible to continue employment that way. Or you can change to just a visitor's visa, in which case you can stay in the country, but you cannot work. So these are a few things that, or you can, if you're working for a multinational, you can leave and then come on an L1B if they have that certification for blanket L1s. So there are many ways of doing it. It depends on your particular situation. But my advice would be to don't wait until the last minute until your 6th year on your H1 to file the labor cert. Do it in advance.
Okay. One question. I heard that if the perm is pending for over a year, you can get extension for a year based on the pending perm. Is it right?
Yes, you're right. So another way of getting an extension on your 6 years, if 6 years are over, is one way is, of course, if the I-140 is approved, which we just discussed. And the other is if 365 days have passed since the processing time of the perm, or processing time of the I-140. For example, labor cert is approved, but I-140 is pending for some reason or the other. So since the start of the process is if 365 days has gone by, then based on that, you can get, instead of a 3-year H1, you will get a 1-year extension on your H1. So that should give you enough time for the I-140 to finally get approved, and then you can file a 3-year extension.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, the other question is there any way to expedite the perm? Like, we have a premium for I-140. Is there any such way that we can expedite perm or audits of the perm?
No, unfortunately, there's no process. There's no premium processing for labor cert. There is premium processing for the I-140, and you can definitely expedite, and most people file premium processing I-140 nowadays anyway. So that can be expedited, and that's really helpful, but the perm cannot be expedited.
Okay. Can an employer withdraw a perm either when it's pending or either when it's under audit? Let's say if there is some mistake and they can refile it, that makes the process a lot easier.
Yeah, if there is no audit, and if you have filed, you remember you're filing online, so it's the perm system, the flag system that you're filing through. It's through the DOL website. Not yet, it hasn't transferred to the flag system as yet, but it will soon. But it's still online nonetheless. So you can withdraw it online itself, or it's quite a simple process. You just have to, click withdraw online. But if your case has been audited, and during the audit you realize that something was not done correctly, maybe an advertisement was not done, or maybe it was done but the wordings are different in each advertisement, or you put the wrong salary, or something has happened, some mess up has happened. In that instance, obviously the case is not going to get approved, but that doesn't mean that you don't respond to the audit. You still have to respond to the audit, but you can respond to the audit and then withdraw the case. If you do not respond to the audit and simply withdraw the case, then you will be subject to supervised recruitment, or you might be subject to some kind of a ban from the Department of Labor. They might say that for the next 2 years, all your cases will have to go through supervised recruitment. So you'll be blacklisted in some way. So anytime you get an audit, please don't ignore it. Don't withdraw without responding to the audit. So respond to the best of your ability and say that, look, we didn't do this, that's why we wish to withdraw, but here's the rest of the information that you asked for.
Yeah. So earlier the perm approval or the certificate used to be a blue paper which is sent to be physical, and now I think it's all online. So let's say, when you are filing a downgrade and upgrade from EB3 to EB2 or vice versa, we need a copy usually. So the copies are available online, when you log in, like let's say a few years back copies?
So because of COVID, there's been some leniency with reference to many things. Deadlines, they've increased, right? They've given additional 60 days to respond to deadlines. They've given additional time to respond to audits. And so one of the other thing was that they've realized that it's difficult to get physical signed signatures. So they've allowed forms to be signed as long as it's a wet signature. Even the perm form can be signed, and a photocopy can be made, and it can be scanned, and then we can use a printout of it. The digital signature can never be used. So there's a difference between a wet signature and digital signature. If you use a digital signature, the case will get denied. So that's one concession they made. In addition to that, earlier the perm approvals used to come in a blue form, and originals used to be mailed. So now they have stopped mailing originals. Instead, it's emailed, and it's just white. It's on white pages. So it's basically a duplicate that is sent. There's nothing more original, and so that it's easier for us now because we can just forward that approval to the clients, because 3 people have to sign on the perm. So it's very hard to coordinate 3 original signatures. But now it's easier for us because we can just get photocopies of signatures on, otherwise we'd have to send each page to a different place. So one page would go to the beneficiary, one page would go to the employer, and we would keep, one of the pages. And what would happen is sometimes pages would get lost, and we would have to then file, even though we have the rest of the pages. Even if you don't have one page in original, you'll have to then file the I-140 and ask the Department of Labor ask the USCIS to request a duplicate copy from the Labor Department. And that is a very lengthy process for them to do that. And so mostly in those cases, premium processing is not allowed. So now, because copies are being sent out, and so there's no concept of original or losing the original, that has become much better for us because we don't have to now worry about losing original documents.